Somewhere in the Bering Sea tonight, a man in his 20s is standing on the steel deck of a ship that's longer than a football field. It's 3 in the morning. His shift ended 40 minutes ago, but he can't make himself go below to sleep. The wind is cutting through his gear, the deck is pitching under his boots, and he's just had a thought that's going to define the next 6 weeks of his life. He can't leave. The contract he signed in the port office felt different on land. 2 months of work for more money than he'd ever seen. A signing bonus that cleared his debts. A plane ticket to Dutch Harbor, Alaska. They told him the work was hard. He believed them. He'd worked construction, pulled warehouse shifts, stacked double shifts at restaurants. He thought he understood hard. He was wrong. This is the story of what happens to a human body and mind during the first 48 hours on a factory fishing ship. It's a job that pays more than most white-collar careers for a few weeks of work. It's also a job that breaks people so completely that some of them never fully recover. The industry has a specific word for the people who don't make it. Greenhorns. Most of them don't last 2 days. A factory fishing ship is not a boat. It's a floating factory that happens to catch its own raw material. The largest ones in the Alaskan pollock fleet are over 300 feet long, carry crews of more than 100 people, and operate around the clock for the entire season. They don't come back to port when the fish is caught. They process it on board. The fish is netted, hauled up, gutted, filleted, frozen, and boxed, all within minutes of being pulled from the water. By the time the ship returns to port, it's carrying millions of pounds of frozen product ready for grocery store freezers on 3 continents. To run this operation, you need a crew split into 2 groups. Up top, you have the deckhands who handle the nets and the catch. Below, you have the processors who work the line. That's where most greenhorns end up. The processing line, the slime line in industry slang. It's where fish meet knife meat conveyor belt in a room kept just above freezing so the product doesn't spoil for 16 hours at a stretch. The pay is the reason anyone does this. A good season on a good boat can put $20,000 or $30,000 into a crew member's account in a matter of weeks. For someone who's broke, who has debt, who has a dream they can't otherwise fund, that number is hypnotic. It's also the hook that keeps them on the ship once they realize what they've signed up for. Because leaving isn't free. The first 12 hours feel almost manageable. The ship leaves port with its new crew strapped into life jackets for the mandatory safety briefing. They learn where the survival suits are stored. They learn that if someone goes overboard in these waters, they have about 10 to 15 minutes before their body shuts down from cold. They learn the location of the muster station, the procedures for fire, for flooding, for man overboard. It's a lot of information, delivered quickly, and almost none of it sticks. The greenhorn is still riding on the adrenaline of being there, on a real ship, doing a real job, with the ocean stretching out in every direction. Then the ship hits open water, and the real introduction begins. The first shift is usually handled with relative ease because the body hasn't caught up yet. The work is repetitive, but it's work, and new crew members are usually trying to prove themselves. They watch the veterans, copy the movements, keep up with the line. Hour 2, hour 3, hour 4, it feels doable. By hour 6, the knife starts to feel heavy. By hour 8, the feet are throbbing. By hour 10, the back is locking up. By hour 12, when the shift finally ends, the new crew member has done nothing but cut fish for 12 hours, and he has less than 8 hours before his next shift starts. He hasn't eaten properly yet. He hasn't slept. And the ship is about to start pitching harder. Seasickness is not what most people think it is. It isn't feeling queasy. It isn't a bad day at an amusement park. Seasickness on a factory trawler in heavy seas is a full-body betrayal. The inner ear gives up, the stomach gives up, the legs give up. A greenhorn who's never been in deep water will vomit until there's nothing left, then vomit bile, then dry heave for hours. While he's doing this, the ship keeps fishing. The line keeps running. The quota keeps waiting. He is expected to stand at his station with a bucket at his feet and keep processing fish. This is the first real test. Not the cold, not the hours, not even the work itself. It's the discovery that no one is going to rescue him from how he feels. The veterans on the line have seen this 100 times. They don't mock him. They don't help him either. They just keep working because the alternative is to lose their own footing on the line, and nobody wants to lose pace. Somewhere in the first 24 hours, every greenhorn has the same thought. I want to go home. And somewhere in the first 24 hours, every greenhorn has the same realization. He can't. The ship isn't going back to port. The helicopter evacuation, if it's even available, costs thousands of dollars, and that cost comes directly out of his pay. If he tries to quit now, he won't make money. He'll owe money. The contract has teeth he didn't see on land, so he keeps cutting fish, because there's no other option. The next 12 hours are when the mind starts to go. The ship runs 24 hours a day, which means the crew is divided into shifts that keep the operation continuous. Some crews work 6 hours on, 6 hours off. Others work 12 and 12. Either way, the sleep is broken, the quarters are cramped, and the noise is constant. On some ships, the bunks are shared across shifts. One crew member climbs out of a rack still warm from the previous occupant, drops his damp clothes in the locker, and falls asleep to the sound of the processing line rumbling through the steel below him. Privacy does not exist. Silence does not exist. The ship is never not working. By hour 30, the greenhorn is running on about 3 hours of actual sleep. His hands are cramping. His fingers are cut up from the fish bones and the knife. The smell of fish guts has soaked into his clothes, his hair, his skin, and he can't escape it because the showers are limited, and the laundry isn't happening until the season is over. He's starting to understand that the discomfort isn't going to end. There's no milestone coming, no halfway point, just another shift, and another shift, and another shift for 6 weeks. This is when the loneliness sets in, and it's a specific kind of loneliness. He's surrounded by 100 people. He's never alone in any physical sense. But everyone around him is focused on their own survival. The veterans have their routines. The processors have their pace. Nobody is going to take a greenhorn under their wing and walk him through the emotional collapse that's coming, because everyone on the ship has already had their own version of it, and they know there's no shortcut through. He has to sit inside it, alone in a crowd, for as long as it takes. By hour 36, the ship has sorted its new crew into 2 groups, even if nobody has said it out loud. Some of the greenhorns have crossed a line in their own heads. They've stopped fighting the experience. They've stopped counting hours. They've stopped thinking about home, about comfort, about whether they made a mistake. They've accepted that the next 6 weeks are just going to be this, and the only way out is through. Their hands still hurt. Their sleep is still broken. Their stomachs are still unreliable. But they've stopped treating these things as problems to be solved. They've started treating them as weather. The other group hasn't crossed that line. They're still fighting. They're still calculating. They're still asking themselves whether they can endure this, and every hour they ask the question, the answer gets weaker. This is the group that breaks. The breaking doesn't look like a Hollywood scene. There's no screaming, no fist fight, no storming off the ship. The breaking looks like a quiet conversation with the shift supervisor. It looks like a man sitting on his bunk with his face in his hands. It looks like someone just not showing up for his shift, and then, a few hours later, asking about the helicopter. The ones who break don't always get off the ship either. Sometimes they're told they can't, because the weather won't allow an evacuation, or the cost will wipe out everything they've earned, and then some. Some of them finish the season as shadows of themselves, going through the motions, counting days. Some of them find a way off at the first port the ship touches, and never work on the water again. The ones who stay have done something the ones who leave couldn't do. They've turned off the part of themselves that was asking whether this was worth it. That's the switch. And 48 hours is about how long it takes to either flip it or discover you can't. If you want more stories about the jobs most people don't understand until they're inside them, subscribe. There's a lot of them. If you want to understand why anyone signs up for this in the first place, you have to understand what the ship offers that the land doesn't. For a lot of the crew, it's the money, which is real, and which arrives all at once in a way that no other entry-level job provides. A successful season on the right ship can pay out what a minimum wage worker earns in a full year. That kind of money, delivered in a lump, can change a person's life. It can pay off debt, it can fund a business, it can buy the first real freedom someone has ever had. For some of the crew, it's the escape. The ship is one of the few places in modern life where a phone doesn't work, an email doesn't reach you, and the relationships that were pulling you apart on land cannot follow you into the middle of the ocean. People with bad divorces, people running from courts, people running from themselves, the ship takes them all. It doesn't fix anything, but it pauses everything. And sometimes the pause is enough to let a person figure out what they want to do next. For a small number of the crew, it's something harder to name. Some people need an environment this extreme to feel like themselves. The normal world is too soft for them, too ambiguous, too full of options. On the ship, the choice is simple: work or don't, endure or don't. There's something clarifying about that kind of pressure, and there are people who only function well under it. Those are the ones who come back season after season. They're not addicted to the money. They're addicted to the compression. Everything that matters to them happens inside those 6 weeks, and the land feels flat by comparison. When the season ends, the crew comes home changed, and almost none of them realize it until they've been on land for a few weeks. The sleep doesn't come back right away. Their bodies are still expecting the 6 on, 6 off rhythm. They wake up at strange hours. They feel restless in soft beds. The quiet of a normal apartment feels unnatural after weeks of constant mechanical noise, and some of them have to run fans just to sleep. Their hands take months to heal from the cuts in the cold. Some of them develop back problems that never fully go away. But the deeper changes are in the mind. After 48 hours and then 6 weeks of learning that you cannot escape a situation by complaining about it, you stop complaining about anything. The land seems full of people having meltdowns over things that wouldn't register on the ship. Traffic, a bad meal, a late package. The former greenhorn watches this and feels something between amusement and contempt. He has to remind himself that not everyone has been reset. Most of the ones who finish a season don't come back. They take the money and use it for whatever they came for, and they move on. The ship was a door, and they walked through it. But every one of them carries something from those first 48 hours for the rest of their lives. A story they almost never tell, because they know most people won't understand it, and the ones who will understand it have their own version of the same story and don't need to hear his. The reason the first 48 hours matter, and the reason the industry watches them so carefully, is that they reveal something about a person that almost nothing else in modern life can reveal. In 2 days on a factory fishing ship, a crew member discovers whether he can endure a situation that he cannot escape, cannot improve, and cannot negotiate with. That's a test that most people live their entire lives without facing, because modern life is built to give us exits. Jobs we can quit, relationships we can end, discomforts we can fix with a purchase. The ship removes the exit. In the absence of the exit, a person finds out what he actually is. Some of them find out they're stronger than they thought. Some of them find out they're not. The ones who break don't break because they're weak. They break because the ship strips away every coping mechanism they've ever used, and the raw person underneath wasn't built for this, or wasn't ready yet, or hadn't yet figured out what he was willing to endure and what he wasn't. Those aren't bad answers. They're just answers that most people don't get in their ordinary lives, because most lives don't ask the question. If you ever find yourself in a bar with a man who did 1 season on a factory trawler and then never again, ask him what he learned in his first 48 hours. If he's willing to answer, pay attention, because he's about to tell you something that cost him more than the money he made. Here's the question I keep coming back to. If you had 2 days on that ship, do you think you'd make the switch, or would you be the one looking for the helicopter? Most people don't actually know the answer about themselves, but it's a useful thing to know.